We have it recording. Okay, so welcome. So today, two of my favorite topics are discussed in the Parsha. One is speech, and the name of the Parsha is Emor, which actually means to say. The way the Parsha opens, and the first words of the Parsha are about speaking. Hashem said to Moshe, V'yomeh Hashem el Moshe, Emor el HaKohanim, B'nai Aaron, say to the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron, and what should you say? And then it's going to talk about a lot of things dealing with telling the Kohanim certain laws that they need to know. But because we speak about the Parsha and we say that the name of the Parsha has an important lesson, the idea of speech becomes important. So we'll talk about that. Also, this week's Parsha, there's a lot of, a whole big section dealing with different times, special times, Shabbos and all the festivals. So we're going to speak about time. So time and speech are two of my favorite topics, of a few favorite, but I think pretty favorite. And then the idea also, when we talk about time, is the idea of the calendar. And of course, that brings us into the continuing conversation that we're having about the counting of the Omer and the time identified in that. And then to pick out one specific incident in the Parsha to do with speech and the misuse of speech, and to look into that with a little more detail. So just before we go into all of that Parsha stuff, I wanted to read, as our intro, something from the Hayom Yom, and it's very short, and it leads itself to lots of interesting understanding and contemplation. So it goes like this. The Alter Rebbe once said, during those years that he would say short ma'amarim, short contemplative essays, know what is above you. So this is a commentary coming up from one of the quotations from Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers. And the Pirkei Avos is know what is above you, an eye that sees and an ear that hears, and all your deeds are written down on a book. So the Alter Rebbe is playing off that. Know what is above you. Know that everything above in the supernal Sephirot and Partsufim, the divine emanations and configurations, all derive from you. In other words, it all depends on man's service. So I like this very much because, number one, it acknowledges that above us are supernal Sphirot and Partsufim, divine emanations and configurations. So what does that mean? So first of all, we exist in this world, and we've spoken before about the different levels of reality, and we talked about, Karina and I spent many sessions talking about the building with a basement and a first floor and a second floor and a third floor and a penthouse, but basically the different realities of existence. There's our physical reality, and then there's like the emotional aspect of that reality. It's not so tangible, but it's still connected to us. And then our thought, our reality, that's part of us, but it's kind of more in the thought realm. And then there's realms above us that are projections of us, but in a spiritual representation of us. And the us that we know, almost like an onion, you can kind of keep peeling levels of an onion off and off and off. With a person, you've got the physical person, and then you've got the emotional person, and then you've got the thought person, and then you've got kind of another aspect of the person that's even higher than the thought person. It's the kind of beyond the limited thought aspect. And then there's another aspect of self that's even higher than that, that's linked to all kinds of spiritual entities that are way more expanded than our limitations. So of course our body is limited in space by where our skin and bones end. Our emotions are kind of contained within us, and we have an aura, and people are in a very bad mood or very happy mood, the aura definitely kind of expands beyond the body. Then we've got our thought realm, which is confined to how expanded our consciousness and our brain power is. And those are all confined. And then we kind of get a little higher to that which is beyond us. And then we get to a realm that is way beyond us. So this little Hayom Yom is actually saying that the spiritual entities that are above us, the Partsufim and the Sphirot, are affected by us. That it's not that we here and things up there are independent of us. The Rebbe is actually saying that we part of creating what are those realities and Partsufim and Sphirot above us. So if I would look up, let's say, if I would do a Google search on Partsufim, I wonder what's going to come up. Partsufim, it might not even come up, but maybe it will. Partsufim. So Partsufim, meaning divine personas, particular reconfigured arrangements of the 10 Sphirot, divine attributes, emanations. These are, let's say, they're energies, and they ways, they kind of spiritual configurations, but we influencing that by who we are. So a couple of weeks ago, I was reading and learning something about Malachim, angels. And again, the teaching on the angels was that we constantly creating those angels ourselves by what we do and what we say and how we interacting with the world around. We dynamically co-creating the reality in which we're living. So I love this quote from the Alter Rebbe, because he's saying, know what's above you, know what's above you, know that everything above is, in fact, from you. Now that can really turn a lot of reality on its head, because we think, in a lot of our thinking, we think that things happen to us, that we just missed the bus by a moment, or we just caught the bus by a moment, or running to the bus, somebody stopped us and started talking to us and it made us miss the bus, or running to the bus that we were going to miss. Somebody talks to the bus driver and makes him leave a few minutes later and we catch the bus. So all those are little angel manifestations in our world that are actually caused by us. And so when we are assisted, that's from us. We generating those kind of positive Sphirot, Partsufim, Malachim. And when things are going against us, that's also us, because we're generating those Malachim that are kind of not assisting, but in a way making us contemplate a little bit more, like, hang on, everything's not going my way. What am I doing wrong? Have I, why am I out of sync? Why do I keep missing the bus, rather than why do I keep catching the bus? Like, do I need to, bring something into alignment? So I really love this quote that, all that is above you derives from you. And I think that's pretty amazing. There is a footnote. So the footnote is the divine emanations, where the chesed or gevura are determined by man or woman, of course.
What's it called?
Oh, sorry, you need to mute yourself, darling. Sorry, please. Oh, okay, I muted her. manifestations of the divine emanations, whether chesed or gevura, are determined by man. Man's actions are independent and real and from above. God reacts to man. Man reflects man's actions. Man may be insignificant from one perspective, but his importance is cosmic from another. I am dust and ashes expresses one view. The universe was created on my account expresses the second. So this is a famous quote from Rabbi Simcha Bunim of Pshisha. And Rabbi Simcha Bunim of Pshisha taught that we should write these two pasukim on pieces of paper and put the one pasuk in the one pocket and the other pasuk in the other pocket. The one says, the whole world was created for me. I'm so important. Look at me. I'm generating all that is above me, all the parsufim and all the sphirot, and the angels are generated by me. I'm like, wow, I'm huge. The whole world was created for me. So in case you get carried away with that kind of power that you have to put in your other pocket, I'm just dust and ashes. I'm going to just dissolve, and I'm just like a particle of the earth in an infinite cosmos. And so balancing between those two realities will keep us in a good place. Talking about balancing realities, just before we move into the Parsha, so we're counting the Omer, and we know that today is I believe it's the 25th day.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't yesterday.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. No, isn't yesterday the 25th?
So it's Netzach by Netzach. So 7 3s are 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Yeah, 25th. So Netzach by Netzach, just to give a little wrapping of that before we go into the next category. So Netzach is kind of mastery, determination, commitment. And today is the day to really solidify in a committed way our commitment to being committed. This is like one explanation of it, but we don't have to go into too much depth. But this idea of know that everything is above you, is from you, I thought that was very powerful, and that's from the Hayom Yom. So it's actually from the Hayom Yom in a couple days' time, but I thought I would do it anyway. So, all right, are we ready to go? Any comments or questions about that? Because otherwise then we can move into more of a conversation about the Parsha. So any comments about that? Okay, just you're powerful, but you're humble at the same time. Balancing the two polarities of yesh, which means my isness, and ayin, which means my lack of isness, I'm part of the whole universe, my non-isness. Okay, so let's go a little bit into the name of the Parsha, and I'm going to share with you an essay from one of my friends, teachers, Hannah Bracha Siegelbaum, and she brings out some very nice points about the word Emor, to say. So, and also, just before I go into her essay, we know that we are energetic beings, and we have different aspects of ourselves connecting to different energies. So I've spoken about this a lot in my yoga class, but we have an earth energy that now allows us to inhabit our bodies and our legs, stand firmly on the ground, sit firmly on the floor. So that's an earth energy. Then we have a water energy that's connected with motion, emotion, so emotional energy. Then we have a fire energy, which is connected with our fire energy is almost like the little steam engine in the little steam fire, what's it? The steam stove, the stove. It's like a little fire burning in the engine room of our little engine. So we feed coals into the little pot-bellied stove and it generates heat, and that's what fires us up and energizes us up. That's our fire energy. Then we have a air energy, that is connected to our heart energy, and it's connected, I think, in fact, to thinking and to thoughts, the air energy. Then we have another energy, which is the ether energy, which is connected to the throat. And that energy is connected also to articulating, to Emor, to saying and to speaking. So keep that in mind when we read Chana Bracha's essay, because it'll all become nicely relevant. So the entire month of Iyar is known for its healing energy, as the healing light of the sun shines brightly at this time without being overpowering. Actually, I'm very sensitive to the sun, and I don't like sitting in the sun too much. I get freckles, and I've had some burns in my past. I'm very careful about the sun. But this past few days, whenever I've been on the porch and it's been sunny, I've felt that the sun was very gentle, and I'm like, trying to expose myself, because sun is a source of vitamin D. So when she writes here that the healing energy of the sun, which shines brightly without being overpowering. And then actually the name of the month Iyar is an acronym for Ani Hashem Rofecha. So this is, I am God, your healer. So this is a healing month. It's a healing month because every day we're counting the Omer, and we kind of counting and looking into different aspects of ourselves that we can fix in some way. Ani Hashem Rofecha. Moreover, the name Iyar is etymologically related to the Hebrew word or, for light. The healing energy of the Hebrew month of Iyar is in its zenith as we approach the inner flame of Lag BaOmer that celebrate the survival of the mystical teachings of the Torah and the Kabbalah. So that's talking about the healing energy of Iyar. Now, in this week's Pasha, the word Emor, say, has aspects about speech. So holiness. So last week we spoke about Pasha's Kadoshim, what it means to be holy. We need to be holy, Hashem told us, because he's holy, and he invites us to
Be holy?
exemplify him, to copy him, to be like him. He's holy, and so we're supposed to be holy. Holiness through the word Emor, which infuses all of Israel with the holiness of keeping the divine word, and the Kohanim with superior holiness because of their special status as servants of God. So in the Torah, whatever is alive, full of life and vitality as opposed to death, is holy. So Parshas Kedoshim concluded with the prohibition of practicing witchcraft for being a medium for the dead. Parshas Emor opens with the prohibition of the Kohanim to become impure by having contact with the dead. So it starts off with talking about the Kohanim and keeping them pure. And then this idea of Emor, speak to the Kohanim and tell them everything. It's also idea of saying to the Kohanim to be extra careful not to become impure through contact with the dead. But at the end of the Pasha, we have an incidence where there's a misuse of speech, which actually results in a death. And we'll talk about that. Okay. So the healing power of words. So she talks about how Shlomo HaMelech speaks about how the fact that when we speak, we share our worries. There's a quote, if there's a worry in a person's heart, let him converse about it and turn it into a joy with the good word. That if you have a worry and you speak about it, your worry gets sort of halved. And our emotions are called emotions, the idea that there's always movement and things are constantly, we move through things unless we don't move through them, and then they get stuck and they get blocked, which that isn't a good thing. And then she talks about this idea of the different elements of the workings of speech, which connects to what I said to you before. Emor, the name of this week's parsha, consists of 3 letters, an aleph, a mem, and a resh. So the aleph, she says, is connected to the idea of aish, because we spell fire, aleph shin, right? Aish. Mayim, water, is the mem, mayim, and the resh, ruach, is air. So these 3 elements are different expressions of our emotions. So through fire, we can express the negative emotions of anger or elevate it. We can use our fire for a good way. We can use our water for a good way. So just this idea of connecting, like, how do we use our speech? Yes, our speech can be connected to our fire, our water, our air, but how do we use speech? So we know that Hashem created the world using speech, right? Everything Hashem did when he created the world was let there be, and he spoke all of creation into being. Hashem spoke creation into being. And it's interesting, in children's stories, especially any stories where there's a little bit of magic, there's the magician or the magic person who says, abracadabra, abracadabra, I'm going to make such and such happen. Abracadabra, I wave my magic wand and boom, something appears. So abracadabra is actually Hebrew. And it's actually abara ka'adabra, which is I will create as I speak. So as I speak the words into being, so I'm creating my reality. So the creation of reality is something that we need to speak about, that whenever we speak, we are creating and articulating a reality. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's go to this misuse of speech that occurs in this week's Parsha, and the person who misuses speech and the mother of the person who misuses speech are going to be of interest. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nivaro.
Amen.
Amen.
You create angels, I think, by saying amen, right?
Yes. So I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to come to the Parsha here. And this is in the last part of the Parsha, the very last, the 7th reading. So it's Shavi'i, the 7th reading, and I'm going to show Rashi's commentary. And we're going to read this little story, and it's quite a dramatic story. And it's a dramatic story because there's a lot of emotion in the story and drama. So I don't know if you remember way back when the Jews were still in Egypt, Moshe, who was kind of coming into his consciousness, he walked out into seeing he wanted to go see what's going on in those labor camps where the Jews were imprisoned. And he walks out and he sees an incident. And what did he see? He saw an Egyptian fighting with the Jew, and he uttered Hashem's name and he killed the Egyptian, because the Egyptian was fighting with the Jew. And what we know from commentaries on that story is that actually what was happening is that there was an Egyptian taskmaster, and he would send the husband. There was a married couple, and Moshe would send the husband of this married couple out. The taskmaster would send the Jewish husband of this couple out. And then the taskmaster, when the husband was away, he would come and have relations with the wife of this couple. And maybe the husband found out about it, but there was a fight going on between this Egyptian taskmaster and the Jewish husband. The Egyptian taskmaster was kind of beating him up, and Moshe came past and saw this, and he uttered Hashem's name, and the Egyptian taskmaster was killed. But that Egyptian taskmaster had impregnated this Jewish woman, and she ended up having a baby, and the baby's father was this Egyptian, and the mother was a woman whose name was Shlomis Bas Divri. And the reason her name was Shlomis Bas Divri is because she would say hello to everybody. Shalom, shalom here, shalom, shalom there. Hi, you doing? She was overly friendly. Rashi says she was even called a prostitute, but it says she wasn't really a prostitute. It's just that she was so overly friendly with everybody that she's kind of got that little bit of a reputation of being too friendly with people who weren't her husband. So anyway, she's pregnant with this Egyptian baby who then gets born and grows up. And this incident, when we start here reading Pasuk 10, that's the baby who is now grown up. If anybody wants to read Pasuk 10, does anybody want to read it? Sandra's putting on her glasses. I think
I'll read it, yeah.
Okay, Sandra looks like she's getting ready.
Now the son of an Israelite woman, and he was the son of an Egyptian man, went out among the children of Israel, and they quarreled in the camp. This son of the Israelite woman and an Israelite man.
Okay, now from what I remember, the two of them quarreling were actually stepbrothers. The one was the Jewish woman's Jewish son from the Jewish husband, and the other one was the Jewish woman's son from the Egyptian husband, and they're having a quarrel. And what is the quarrel about? So the quarrel is about, let's see if basically the quarrel is about the young man with the Egyptian father wants to pitch his tent amongst the brethren of the tribe of Dan. And the other brother says, excuse me, but you don't belong here because your father wasn't a Jew. And then the boy says, well, my mother was Jewish. Why can't I pitch my tent here? And then the other brother says, well, you know, it doesn't go on the mother, it goes on the father. And so they have a conversation about it. And then, what happens next? They go up to Moshe to ask Moshe about what's going to be. And Moshe says, I'm sorry, but in this case, you can't pitch your tent according to the lineage of your mother. According to the lineage of your father, you can't pitch your tent here. In which case, the son of the Jewish mother, but the non-Jewish father, curses and blasphemes God. He's very angry and he's feeling very excluded and he's feeling very negated. And it says here, when the man heard this, he arose and began blaspheming against the divine name. So that's pretty serious. And
Racha,
yes.
at what point did they switch that to, if you have a Jewish mother, you're considered a Jew?
So I don't know when that switched, and there was like a tribal thing as well. Like now we still go with the father in terms of tribal thing. If your father was a Kohen, then you're a Kohen. If your father was a Levi, then you're a Levi. If your father was a Yisraeli, then you're Israeli. So being a Jew is on the mother, but on the tribe, at least to those parts, Kohen, Levi, and Israeli, it's still on the father. So this was a tribal thing, like which tribe are you pitching your tent? So I don't know. It's kind of a little bit
But he was still if he was still Jewish anyway. I mean, he was still Jewish.
Well, it says here actually it says that he did convert, and it says in Rashi he was halachically a Jew. He converted or kind of immersed in a mikveh and was circumcised when all of the Bnei Israel got ready for Har Sinai. So he was considered a Jew. It's just where amongst the tribes he was going to put his tent, and he wasn't happy with the way the judgment was ruled. So he cursed. And then it says again, this other thing, so he cursed and using Hashem's name. I mean, it's one of the 10 commandments not to take Hashem's name in vain. And so he pronounced, this was the name that must not be pronounced, the explicit 4-letter divine name. And then this aspect of him being the son of his mother, Shlomit Bas Divri, from the tribe of Dan. And here is Rashi explaining that why was she called this? Why is her name mentioned? Not why was her name Shlomit Bas Divri, but why is it specifically stressed that he was the son of this woman and her name mentioned? So it wants to teach us that she was the only woman in all of the Bnei Israel living in Egypt involved in an illicit affair, which is an incredible fact just by itself. And even though it was unwitting on her part, nevertheless, no other Israeli woman even had unwitting illicit relations. So somehow there's an aspect, Rashi saying that it was even unwitting on her behalf, that like early in the morning, her husband was sent out and she didn't even realize it wasn't her husband. I don't know how that's possible, but there's some aspect that Rashi's intimating that it was unwitting. Somehow she didn't mean to, but the fact that this idea of her name, and Rashi saying she was a chatterbox, always going about saying, peace be with you, peace be with you, peace be with you. To men, she would chatter about with words, greeting everyone, very talkative. And that is why she fell into sin. So this is kind of sounds a little harsh. What do you mean? Is it her fault or is it not her fault? Was she chatting or was she not chatting? Did she invite this story or didn't she invite the story, or did she open the door to the story in some metaphorical way? Like, why are we holding her accountable? Why does the Torah even mention her name? So there is another teaching that we know, that if you put your hand into your pocket, and when you put your hand into your pocket, let's say you're looking for a quarter, and you put your hand into your pocket and you take out, instead of a quarter, you take out a dime, or you take out a nickel, or you take out something that you're not looking for, you should say to yourself, the angel didn't help me put my hand on the right coin. I'm a little off. Somehow I'm a little off, because if I put my hand and I'm looking for a quarter, I should have put out a quarter. I need to do a little adjusting so I'm more in alignment. Or why does a person bring a korban to the Beit HaMikdash if they did an unwitting sin? They did a sin that they, by accident. So the reason is that they weren't protected from that accident because they didn't have their good angel helping them, that somewhere they were a little off. That's why they were able to accidentally do something, because even an accident is somehow a reflection on the person that they weren't more careful. So even though we could say that this incident with Shlomit was not really her, she didn't go out to have relations with this person, but her behavior opened the door on some level to what happened to her. And then why also is his name mentioned in relation to his mother, like telling us that he was the daughter of Shlomet Bas Divri and from the tribe of Dan, to make us know. So when a person does a good thing, they bring honor to their family and their tribe. And when a person doesn't do a good thing, they bring dishonor not just to themselves, but to their family and to their tribe. So that's one story of the misuse of speech. The name of the parsha telling us how important speech is. The idea of abracadabra, as we speak, so we create, and learning from Hashem, who creates the world with speech, that the way we give articulations to our experience. I had a terrible day, I had a great day, I'm challenged, I'm overwhelmed, I can't take it anymore, whatever, however we articulate our reality, that's going to create our reality through our words. So that's one aspect of what I wanted to say in this aspect of speaking and speech and the value of speech. And now I will go on to the other piece of what this parsha is about, which is time. So I don't know if we're done with speech, if anybody wants to say anything about what was said about speech, but before, and it's very important. I was talking about the energy of the throat, or in yoga, it's the throat chakra, or it's very important for us to articulate what it is that we want to articulate, to speak our truth, our own truth, to give definition and expression to what it is that we feel and that we believe in, to speak out, because it's important. The whole parsha is called say out. So if there's anything you want to say before we go on, otherwise I want to talk a little bit about time. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just very simple, because I'm running around at work. Did you say that if we say we had a bad day, what was the rest of that? You bring truth to what happens by what you say, something like that?
So I said that the way we describe our experiences shape our experiences. So if we articulate negativity about our life or our experiences, we're going to experience those things in a negative way. If we can change, instead of I had a challenging day, a terrible day, if we say I had a challenging day, or if we say I'm so overwhelmed, as opposed to saying I have a lot to do, I'm sure I'll get through it. Or, the way we talk about what's going on, if we say negative things, we're creating a negative reality. If we can reframe and say what we need to say using words that are more positive, not that we're denying our experience, but if we can kind of put positive spin even on our wording, it will affect our experience. So, yeah, that's what I said. Thank you.
It's like the most basic concept of modern psychology.
Right, it is. It is, but it's,
Yeah.
I mean, I hear certain people talking and they speak so negatively, and I just wish that they would shift a little bit, because it's very definitive and it locks them into that negative experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on. So in this week's parsha, there's talk about Shabbos. There's talk about all the different Yomim Tovim, and they all mentioned with all the details of, Shabbos and then all of the holidays, including Rosh Hashanah, blah, 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 as you know, all the holidays. I want to share with you an essay by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs that talks about why our attitude to time is so important. And it's a really beautiful essay. So he talks about time management is more than management and larger than time. It's about life itself. So not just how we manage what we say, but how we manage time is very defining of our life and our life's experience. God gives us one thing above all, life itself, and he gives it to us all on equal terms. However rich we are or poor we are, we only have 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week, and however many years we have. Time is a quality and a quality and what's the word? Not a consumer item. It's a people sell things.
A commodity?
Commodity. Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Yeah.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Whoever we are, whatever we do, whatever gifts we have, the single most important fact about our life on which all else depends is how we spend our time. The span of our life is 70 years, more or less. If we're strong, 80, says Psalm 90. And despite the massive reduction of premature deaths in the past century, the average life expectancy around the world, according to the most recent United States figures, is 71.5, which is kind of interesting, but that includes lots
I
of
thought that'd be
countries
higher.
around the world. Yeah.
Mhm.
So concludes the psalm. Teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom, reminding us that time management is not simply a productivity tool, it's a spiritual exercise. Now, here's Rabbi Sachs's life-changing idea, which sounds very simple, but isn't. Don't rely only on your to-do list, use a diary. Now, it's kind of funny, right? What does it mean? He's telling us don't just make lists, but make a diary, like the Honorable Lord Rabbi, special, brilliant genius, Jonathan Sachs. What does it mean? So he says the most successful people schedule their most important tasks in their diary. They know if it isn't there, it won't get done. To-do lists are useful. To-do lists are useful, but not sufficient. They remind us of what we have to do, but not when. And the to-do lists fail to distinguish between what is important and what is just urgent. They clutter the mind with trivia and distract us when we ought to be focusing on the things that matter most in the long run. But a diary connects us with what and when. What applies to the individuals applies to communities and cultures. Okay, that's kind of a funny little hint, and why are we talking about that in our Parsha class? So it's going to go on and say that our Jewish calendar is like a consciousness diary. And as we go through the calendar year, we make certain appointments with ourselves to think about and deal with very important issues that a person should be thinking about and dealing with in their life. And I like the way he explains it very much. So he says that we have weekly, monthly, and a yearly schedule of sacred time. And the Torah forces us to remember what contemporary culture's actually forgotten. That when we focus on specific things at specific times, our life has meaning. So in secular culture, they don't really have Shabbos anymore, and they don't really have so many of their other cultural festivals. I mean, they have Thanksgiving, but they don't have so many other religious festivals that are more time-based. So the Jewish calendar is a structure of time that we share together for particular kind of processing. So I'm going to go through the way he defines the holidays, and I think it's very interesting. We all need an identity, and everybody's identity comes with a story. And we need a time when we remind ourselves of the story, where we came from and why we are who we are. So which holiday is that?
Which holiday, where we came from, where we are, and
Where we came from and why we are who we are.
Pesach.
Thank you.
Was I right?
Yes, Pesach.
Okay.
Right. Right. We reenact the founding moment of our people as they began their long walk to freedom. Okay. We need a moral code, an internalized satellite navigation system to guide us through the wilderness of time. That is what we celebrate on which holiday? Our internal navigation system guiding us through, I would say, not only the wilderness of time, but morality and ethics.
Simchat Torah.
What is it, Linda?
Simchat Torah, I mean, getting the,
Yeah, well, you're right. It is about the Torah. Shavuot is when we reenact the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, but you were close, yes. And then we need,
I had the idea.
yeah, then we need a regular reminder of the brevity of life, and hence the need to use time wisely. And we do that when we focus on our priorities and how short life is, and like when are we focusing on I guess judgment and praying to be written into the book
Yom
of
Kippur?
That's
Or
Rosh Hashanah,
Rosh
right?
Hashanah, okay.
Right. And then we need a time when we confront our faults, apologize for the wrongs we have done, make amends, resolve to change. And that is easy one,
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. And then we need to remind ourselves that we are on a journey, that we are strangers and sojourners on earth, and that where we live is only a temporary dwelling.
Sukkot.
Exactly, that our material well-being is temporary, right? Temporal. And then from time to time, we step back from all the pressures that we find in our week, and we renew relationships and we rest.
Shabbos.
So that's really easy, right?
Mhm.
So all of these things give us our timing, and we have this opportunity that we can reset. And it says, we are obeying the rules. We are following the Jewish calendar, which takes many of the most important truths about our lives and puts them into a diary, not just do this, do that, think about yourself in a certain way, take a rest every now and again, think about where you come from, realize that, your house and all your possessions are just ephemeral. Like, no, it'll put it out in a diary, like do this here and then do that then, and then do that then. And it gives us a calendar of when to focus on what. And that is, I think, really very nice. And he's saying that in secular societies, that's less and less. And so people don't have their own identities and their tribal, communal identities. And so they need to get national identities, and they start to develop them in a political way, because all other aspects of their, of their identities have sort of started to disappear. And
He forgot one.
Sorry?
He forgot one.
I forgot
Really important
one.
one. Okay, which one is the one where you have to show courage and resistance, and no matter what the odds are, you have to fight for the right to be a Jew.
Yes, Hanukkah.
Mhm.
Hanukkah. And
Yes.
also we didn't say Purim either. Purim is our, opportunity to understand that our understanding is limited, and joy
Yes,
is
Steve.
I don't want to send a text until.
powerful.
I don't,
So,
okay.
so the conclusion of his essay is the life-changing magic of the Jewish calendar. Philosophy seeks timeless truth. Judaism, by contrast, takes truth and translates them into time in the form of sacred shared moments.
Your email.
Experience the great truths by living them. So whatever you want to achieve, write it in a diary, live by the Jewish calendar if you want to experience, not just occasionally to think about the things that give life meaning. And before we end, I'll just say one more thing about the Jewish calendar, that there's sort of a debate about how we view time, and that one way of viewing time is in a linear line, that, you know, time began here and it's going there, and we have
Rafa,
to-
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I gotta go help my husband set up for Rabbi Lamb. So,
Okay.
all right, I'll listen to the rest later. I'm sorry, but
Okay,
thank
no,
you.
I'm just wrapping up, but thank you. You were here for the whole time. I'm just wrapping up the last.
Okay,
one.
great.
But-
Thank you very much.
Okay.
See you, everybody. Have a Shabbat Shalom.
I gotta go.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. So I just want to share this last idea that time can be viewed in two ways. One is a linear continuum. It's, you know, this is when things began and here we're going, and we just keep marching forward, and we don't really keep going back to the beginning. And then there's the idea of time as a circle. We go around the calendar year and we keep coming back to the same spot. And then that's also not exactly our Jewish approach. And then the Jewish approach is sort of to take both of those things and put them together, that we have a spiral. So we're not going in a linear line from beginning to end. We do keep circling back, but every time we circle back, we're not really in the same place. We've progressed. So we circle back, but we've evolved. We circle back, but we've evolved. And so Jewish time is coming back to those sanctified times, but we're not the same person, and the world has changed. So it's a continually spiraling reality.
Very cool.
So I just, I think that that's sort of what I had prepared for today. And I would like to invite you all to comment or speak. And just before I conclude, just that idea that we started, know what is above you. This is also connected to the power of how we articulate ourselves and our worlds into being. Know that's what above you is actually coming from you, which I think is a very interesting and sobering but empowering notion, that as we open our hearts, as we love each other, as we act in the good of others and the world, and with kindness and generosity and sharing and positive vibe, so we create that positive, you know, it affects, so that it affects what's above us, which ends up affecting what's around us, whether it's the bus that waits the extra 5 minutes, or the parking place that suddenly becomes available to us, or whatever it is, that it's us engaging with the world that then engages with us. It's us creating the energy that then becomes the energy that envelops us and that we live in. And so as we align with our higher nature, which is our godly nature, and we put ourselves in sync with God's vision for us, which is love your neighbor, do, you know, acts of goodness and kindness, you know, rest on Shabbos, you know, don't eat unkosher because it makes your sensitivity blocked. Whatever these mitzvahs are, you know, have a consciousness of your soul and pray to God to align with your soul. All of these things are going to see to it that what we're generating will bring down, you know, a reality that will enable us to live a more harmonious, more connected life, and be more joyful and be more giving, loving, and kind, which is what we're all aiming for and hoping for. So I bless you that we should all be able to do that with greater and greater success.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
That's beautiful.
Amen. Amen.
Love it.
So Yakova, I don't know what happened with the yoga story. If you were trying to
I wasn't trying on Tuesday. Tuesdays are